My Doctor, your health anytime, anywhere. Hello, lovely people. Welcome to the My Doctor podcast. My name is Mwesigwa Joy and I am your host. And on this podcast, we basically discuss health, all aspects of health. We want you to know how to prevent certain diseases. When should you seek for help? When you have the signs and symptoms, how can you get treated? Is treatment available? And we don't focus on only that. We also focus on the outskirts of health. Today, the topic we have is very interesting. We're going to be doing health and the law. What rights do you have as a Ugandan towards health? What rights do you have when you go to a hospital? What are your rights? And I'm here with a counsel. And let him introduce himself. You're welcome, Mr. Kamukama.
A counsel. It's a counsel to be.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you so much, Joy Mwesigwa. My name is Kamukama Mark Trevor. And I'm a fourth year law student in my second semester. So, I see where I'm going, right? Yeah, one of the my favorite course units or things I've studied in the law is health and the law. It's a very interesting topic because it handles people's social well-beings, health, mental health, and how the nitty-gritties can get into the dynamic of health in hospitals, health facilities, and all that. Yeah, so basically that's an introduction of the health and the law. It's quite a beautiful topic, I could say.
Okay, so let's dig into it right away. So what are some of the rights that maybe our citizens are supposed to have in accordance to law?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the biggest thing we look at when we are looking at the point of health and the law, or the general topic of health and the law, we look at the right to health. What is the right to health? What elements do we look at to establish whether the right to health has been met? All right. Then we look at justiciability. What the doctors are doing, is it in the line of justice or not? Are you giving the patients information they need, things like that? Yeah, and when we talk about the right to health, right now I want to look at it in a dynamic that everyone that listens to us is going to understand it. So, Joy, what do you understand by the right to health? Something small.
Right to health. Yeah. I would think right to health is, number one, every citizen in Uganda should be able to access health facilities, high quality, at least from the government facilities. Then maybe the patient's informed consent, like us, the doctors, we're supposed to tell the patient about the treatment they're going to receive, what are the side effects, the procedures, what are the side effects, so that they choose whether they want the treatment or not. I think that's partly what it is.
Okay, yeah, that's basically amazing. And looking at it in establishments of, international organizations, we have the World Health Organization. All right. Right now, the right to health was defined as the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of mental and physical health. All right. And those are very important things and distinctions that we have to decipher while attaining the right to health. Yeah. And what I was trying to avoid is getting into the deep things of articles and sections. All right. But the right to health, there is the constitution of the World Health Organization as per 1946. Yeah. It defined what health is. And health, I think any layman, in a way that they want to define it, they would define health somehow. Right? So what is health?
It's like you're turning the question around. Okay.
No,
health is not merely absence of disease, but it's like the complete well-being of someone, physically, mentally, spiritually.
Yeah. So basically, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, without merely the absence of what? Of disease, illness, or what? Infirmity. All right? And this very provision, it was in the preamble of the what? Of the Constitution of the World Health Organization of 1946. So this provision also articulated clearly that health and the right to health is a fundamental human right. All right? Yes. And that being said, we are in Uganda, right? And Ugandans also expect to meet their right to what? To health. But unfortunately, a big percentage of people do not know what to do in their journey or quest to meet the right of health, all right? And the right to health, as clearly stipulated in that preamble, is a fundamental right. So the question goes, how do we meet this right of health in Uganda. So this is how it goes. Uganda is subject to international guidelines, and some of them, obviously, the World Health Organization. Then there is the International Covenant of Social, Economic, and Cultural Rights. All right. And now this is the body that regulates the right to health internationally. And Uganda subscribes to it. We subscribe to that. We're cool like that. All right. Yeah. So that being said, it has ways it breaks down the right to health. All right.
Okay.
And how do we know that Uganda being a part of that that organization, all right? It has things it incorporates, right, in the Ugandan law that make the right to health not a facade or a mirage, but something that is attainable, all right? Yes. So basically, we look at certain elements, interrelated and essential elements that we look at that make the right to health make sense in Uganda. But the sad part of it is that in Uganda, there are no properly stipulated laws, like in the constitution, in articles, that bring out the right to health. So many questions have been brought up by people of certain standing in society, and they're like, if in the constitution there is nothing like I have to go to the hospital and this is supposed to be done for me, how am I supposed to seek that in case I am denied my right to health? Now there is something that is called the objectives, the national objectives and policies, and these are in the Constitution of Uganda. They're engraved in the Constitution, but not in the articles. So that is the question. If they're in just the objectives, these are objectives that are they legally binding? All right. If something is wrong, that's a question anyone would ask. It's just in the objectives. It's like maybe an introduction or like a preamble. And then there is the main course of the Constitution. All right. Are these things, for example, accessibility to hospitals? I have failed to access a hospital and something has gone wrong. For example, something we discussed about.
The story of Nakachwa. Actually, before you go on, I would want you to tell the people about that story of Nakachwa so that they can easily understand what you're trying to say.
Okay. Now, the story of she's Joyce Nakachwa, and she was versing the Attorney General. All right. Now, this case, it's a very sad case. Whenever I think about it, it's actually deep. She's a pregnant woman. She's due, all right, and she's supposed to give birth.
She's in labor?
Yes.
Okay.
And these are priorities of health. Yeah, I don't know what you would tell me about the medicine world, but what I know about it is mothers in maternal issues, all those things are priorities, all right? These are people that we look at with high priority, all right? So she goes to the hospital, and at this hospital, she cannot get the help she needs. There's no childbirth. I mean, they do not help her.
There are no maternal services at the hospital.
Midwife things. Is that what it is? Yeah, she cannot give birth at that hospital, and she's so deafened. She does not understand what to do at this point. They call it, I think, amazi, water broke.
Water broke.
Yeah. So that's a language that I think everyone would understand. Unfortunately, she had to leave the hospital. She left the hospital without a reference. They
didn't refer her.
They did not
They
refer.
just told her we don't have maternal services. You go away.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is detrimental to her quest of right to health. You get me? That being said, as she's moving, they did not give her an ambulance. All right? And she's someone who's due. This is not something that you're going to say, hey, baby, inside, wait for a minute. She's going to walk to this place and she's going to attain what? Medical care.
Yeah.
As she's moving, the water breaks. I don't know how many times it breaks.
No, I think maybe it broke on next once, so probably it broke on the
As she was moving, she couldn't move anymore, and it had to happen there on the road. The road has no gloves. The road has no spirit. It has no anesthesia. It has no whatever the people use in midwifery, and it all went wrong. The mother is there. The kid passes on, and that is a disadvantage. So the question comes:
did the mother survive?
Yeah, she did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The question that arises is, what does she have to do as a woman who does not know anything about the law? All right? And they say that Uganda as a state is supposed to preserve, is supposed to protect, it's supposed to fight for the rights of people. Those are the those are the roles of the state in the quest of the right to health. So what is Uganda's responsibility in that issue? At that point, she did not attain she did not attain or enjoy the highest attainable standard of health. Yeah. All right? She lost a child. Probably that child would have been saved. All right? And these are the small nitty-gritties that are affecting different people and different things. So before that is established, there are elements, all right, that we consider now in the law. Or any other parts, even in hospitals, policy makers, that Ministry of Health, things that are supposed to be considered, they are interrelated, all right? Yeah. And these are availability, that's number one, accessibility, acceptability, and quality, all right? Now, that being mentioned, how do we break them down? When I say availability, how does availability make sense in the quest of the right to health? Do you have something you can say about that?
Availability of resources?
Any availability of nurses, availability of doctors, availability of resources, basically. And are these resources, can they be met by an ordinary person without levels of discrimination? So if I go to this hospital, I will attain this. If I go to this one, I will fail to attain it. That should change, right? The state's responsibility being to preserve and respect the right to health should be pronounced at that point, that wherever someone goes, they're going to attain the highest attainable standard of what?
Of health.
Yeah, to keep them at the point of, at the state of being socially well, mentally and physically. So availability should be looked at. In this case of Nakachwa, because now that's what we're going to use at the case study. Was availability respected? There was really nothing like availability, and that really messes the right to health. And the right to health, you cannot enjoy any other right, yeah? Despite of the fact that the right of health is not properly or explicitly stipulated in the Constitution, the right to health is indispensable. You cannot do away with the right to health. So it should actually have been the first thing saying Article 21, the right to health, then they break it down, But it is engraved in the objectives. Objective 14, which talks about shelter. It is actually put with other things: shelter, safe water, then right to health, whatever that is. And it should have been the first thing that would have been put in the Constitution, as per me, and to anyone else, and the policy makers. So that's a call to the policy makers to actually put that into consideration, because it's a very loud question. So availability, there was no availability of resources. Then we look at acceptability, or accessibility. Accessibility is broken down into we call them ingredients, all right? And accessibility, the way it sounds, accessible. That's why I say they're interrelated but essential elements. You can confuse availability with accessibility and acceptability. Yeah? Those are three different things, but they all need to be put into consideration. All right? So accessibility, there is non-discriminatory accessibility. Every person should be able to attain what another person would attain. Joy Mwesigwa, being a person of high standing in society, should not be able to attain certain or to access certain things that Joyce Nakachwa will fail to what? To attain. Yeah.
Is that feasible though? Because that brings in the question of private and...
Yes. Yeah. Now that's a very brilliant question. The right to health focuses on one thing. It focuses on one thing. That is the state responsibilities. State and non-state parties. All right? The state parties, this is the government, obviously. The government has to ensure some things that are going to make it appreciable, like accessible to everyone. You get it? Like the way they say bonaba some. Yeah? You feel me? And even in that, there should be a system that makes it, that brings it to the other ingredient that we're going to look at, which is quality. So that's why I say they're interrelated and essential, right? It's the question of it being feasible is a question of fact, all right? So it's a question looking at, first of all, Uganda is not a developed country. We look at it as a third world country, right? So that means its resources are limited, all right? If it is to the if it's satisfactory to the people of Uganda that Uganda has done whatever it can do, whatever is in its reach, they can see that because if we look at even if we look at the budget, all right, the budget that is put on health, I'm not exactly sure of the figures, is way low than the budget that is put on the cars in the parliament. Mm-hmm. You get that? And what is a priority? The cars or the lives? That is a question that should go to people that are the policy makers. All right? We are not attacking anyone, but what we are doing is stating facts. You get it? Yeah. So basically, the right to health has been undermined. And clearly, people are having issues about it. And even us that are supposed to enforce certain things, there is a dead ear to that, you know? You cannot go further than you are. That is acting ultra vires. I cannot act out of my means, but I can advocate. You get it? And I think that's a very good thing. It's a start. Yeah, so basically, accessibility. She could not access. There is that non-discriminatory. I think she falls under that. Because man, why would you tell someone to go away from your hospital without a referral? You know? So she has been now, for example, if it is someone of high standing, we shall not mention names, that goes to a certain hospital, even if it's that hospital, yeah, they will do whatever it is in their power to make sure she reaches to a better hospital. You know? Even if it means calling for helicopter. You get me? You know, and that is something that can be done. Because life is a priority. Life is a priority. Yeah, and losing a life because of failing to do something that is expected of you, you know, is a whole hospital cannot fail to make sure that an ambulance is gotten for someone to go to the hospital. Yeah, so she could not access medical health facilities because she was in a certain grounding, you know. There is another ingredient under accessibility, which is economic accessibility, affordability. Yeah, it is the government or the state's responsibility, yeah, to make these resources accessible financially. Everyone is supposed to be able to attach or get that medical need that they need urgently, even if it's not. I don't think it's even about the money, because if you say these are two contradictory things. If you say that health, and life is mandatory, it's a priority, and then you say on Otaina Sente Cafe, I think those two things do not coordinate. They do not make sense. Yeah, so economic accessibility would be denied. You get it? Yeah. Then we look at information accessibility. If you're going to carry out tests, on me, for example, I'm a patient and you're the doctor, and there is something you realize probably in my blood. I don't know how you say those things, and you're like, I'm going to use his blood to make some tests. I'm entitled to know. If I do not know, it's a cause of action. I can sue you. If I find out that you're using my blood to find out how apes work, maybe you saw an ape in me, something like that, whatever it is. That was, by the way. But such things, tests, and if you need information, I ask something specifically, that doctor, I need to know how, something in me is working. You're supposed to give me that information because I asked for it. Like for us, in our profession, in the legal profession, you do not work for a client, even if you know the law, without their instructions. So I assume that is something.
It's called informed consent in the medical world.
Perfect. Yeah, and there's a test for that, right? What's that test? In the law.
But no, Bolam test is different. Bolam test is when if I do something towards a patient, maybe I've treated a patient and they feel like I did something wrong and they take me to court. If my colleagues think that they would have done the same, then I am safe, because that's the Bolam test. I did the reasonable thing in that situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reasonable doctor test.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That one of informed consent is also, it also has its cases. Yeah, like Kaur versus the state. This guy said, yeah, it was a question that needed reasoning of a doctor. I think it also applies to the Bolam test somehow, where Kaur, I think Sulel, it's an Indian doctor versus the state. He comes up and is like, I cannot treat this because the patient was unconscious and they needed a surgery. But apparently, there was supposed to be those consents that you guys
signed before the surgery. Yeah.
So the doctor says, I cannot handle this because this person is unconscious. Is that reasonable?
I don't think, informed consent sometimes does not work in emergencies, because where am I going to get the consent? However, if there's a caretaker, you can get the consent from the caretaker. But sometimes some trauma cases, like accidents, the person has just fallen off a border. We don't know who the caretaker is. So I'm mandated to take care of them until they can recover consciousness, and then we obtain
perfect. So Kaur was liable because this was an emergency situation and he needed to use his mind as a doctor to actually do whatever is possible to recover this person. You know, so those are some of the things. We were still on accessibility, right? And we were on information accessibility. Yeah. Then there's physical accessibility. Can they access the hospitals? Are the roads okay? So we go back to all things of policies. Is the government doing its work in making infrastructure work that can patients reach the hospitals to attain health services, to achieve or get the services that are, the best attainable standard of health services, mental health services or physical health services? Yeah, so those things being said, giving it to our case study today of Joyce Nakachwa, I think all those were denied. All right? All those were denied. She did her part. She went to a hospital. But what happened after she went to the hospital? Those are questions of, that's health and the law. I mean, after that, what direction does she have to take as a person? Yeah. And the other one, we said availability, accessibility, and
quality. Acceptability and quality.
Yeah, acceptability. Whatever is happening, I mean, whatever you call them procedure? All those things should be acceptable by how can I state this?
According to the standards.
Yeah, to the acceptable standards. And acceptable standards vary, right? There is an acceptable standard in the medical world. Then there are cultural standards. All right. Now, us looking at it in a spectrum of Uganda, there are some standards that we may not be able to have. All right, because we're in third world country, and it's going to be in Singapore or somewhere else. So I come up and I bring up something that may not be feasible in Uganda, but this is what we have to do. But then there is an alternative. All right. So if that alternative is done and something to the contrary happens, the doctor did what they could because they did something in the acceptable standards in the Ugandan dynamic. All right. Then for the cultural thing, we look at gender now, right? Gender, does it affect in your gender dynamic, you're a female or a male? If it's done to you, is it going to affect your well-being as a person? If no, it can be feasible. If yes, it will not be feasible. I cannot get into the nitty-gritties because I do not know the procedures, but that's basically it. So it has to be acceptable.
Okay.
Then
quality.
Quality, basically. The resources must be, the facilities. Are they facilities? Or the equipment used, the nurses, the doctors have to have attained a certain standard of education for them to be doctors in a hospital. For me to say Dr. Joy, you have to be of a certain quality, before you put your hand on someone, you have to have the knowledge about that exact thing that you're going to handle. So if anything happens to me and then I realize you do not have a license to work on me, but you are employed by a hospital, why wouldn't I sue the hospital? So that is how health and the law work together, basically.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kamukama. We have learned a lot today. So as we come to the end of this episode, I want you to give closing remarks to the people about health and the law.
The people of Uganda, it's very important to know that your right to health is a fundamental right. And you cannot enjoy any other right. You cannot enjoy the right to health. You cannot enjoy the right to education if your right to health is not respected. So you should know that the law protects you, and certain things you need to put in consideration when you're attaining your right of health as a person. You're supposed to put in mind that, yes, it is the state's responsibility to respect your right to health. And the right to health is an indispensable one, all right? Yeah, so generally speaking, everyone has a right to health. And this is not only a national policy, but it's an international policy. Yeah, basically, you have the right and seek for your right, defend your right. Yeah, and the law shall protect you in your quest for the right to health.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kamukama.
You're welcome.
Thank you for talking about health and law. I've personally learned a lot. I didn't know a lot of the things that you've talked about.
Thank you.
And to our people, hope you've learned that you have a right to health. And just to make this clear, we're not attacking anyone in this episode. We appreciate the works of the government. So far, we have a national referral hospitals, we have general referral hospitals, health centers, 4-1, village health councils. But just that there are some gaps that maybe Mr. Kamukama has talked about that could also be addressed, So we just wanted you to know your right to health, and when you go to a facility, you have a right to high quality health. So thank you so much. Thank you for watching this far. We'll be having these episodes every Saturday. Every Saturday we'll be airing and having different topics about health. If you also want us to talk about certain stuff, or you have comments or questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section on our YouTube channel and our LinkedIn channel. Thank you so much. This is My Doctor, Your Health, Anytime, Anywhere.
My Doctor, Your Health, Anytime, Anywhere.